There are types of films that are termed as ahead of their time. This statement has often been abused by artists to even defend mediocrity or the failure of their movies at the box office. There is a hilarious interview with Salman Khan and Anupama Chopra where he says that movies that are not accepted by the audience, well, they're just bad movies. Nothing is ahead of its time.
कभी-कभी फिल्म अपने वक्त से आगे होती है और बाद में लोग उसे अप्रिशिएट करते हैं।
आप उसको कुछ तो उस वक्त मत बनाओ,
वक्त पे बनाओ।
वक्त पे बनाओ।
While I disagree with Bhai vehemently, especially because some of my favorite movies featuring him were actually flops, this includes Andaz Apna Apna and the Shirish Kundar directed film Jani Man, I believe there are cases where the movies are genuinely intriguing, offer complex themes, have aged like fine wine and genuinely were misunderstood by the audience. This is where the intention of the filmmaker somehow just did not translate to the audience lapping it up, and in many cases due to the marketing of the movies or several complications like delays, the audience just did not show up to watch the movie. These are the list of movies that are not restricted to an echo chamber of intellectual cinephiles, okay? This is a list that I believe anyone who loves cinema would appreciate, and these movies just did not get the credit that they deserved. I would love to know before I start the list on which movies do you believe were misunderstood by the audience and were hard done by either by trolling or misplaced criticism. So here is Tried&Refused Productions with 5 brilliant Bollywood movies grossly misunderstood by the audience. Jagga Jasoos. This is simply one of my personal favorites, a beautifully shot investigative globe-trotting thriller that was a musical in its truest sense. Jagga Jasoos was absolutely rejected by the audience in its theatrical run. I equate it to many things, its 3-year delay, the sheer number of elements it was attempting to portray, and like many Anurag Basu movies, an indulgent second half that took the shape of, well, the number of heads that Nawazuddin Siddiqui had as the potential villain of the franchise. I mean, it had romance, a case of conspiracy regarding overthrowing a communist government, a missing parent, a stuttering hero, a klutz of a heroine, and well, an illegal arms trade racket. Let's just say there was a lot to pack in, which is something that even Ranbir Kapoor agrees in his retrospective analysis. The failure of this movie has made Ranbir Kapoor since never venture into the space of being a producer. It broke me as an audience, for it is the ideas and abandon that I associate with movies and their magic. To attempt the wild, to attempt the obnoxious, and probably it was wishful thinking to assume that it would be celebrated unanimously. What I however concluded after this movie was that we may be the land of musicals. We have accepted this as the structure of our movies, where we break into song and dance. Keyword break into. But when dialogues are also delivered in musical rhymes, it does not have the same patronage as the West. When you look at movies like Grease, Les Miserables or West Side Story, there is a celebration of the art of song and dance and dialogues being in rhyme and rhythm. This is true for a popular TV show like Glee too, but there is a sense of irritation that creeps in for Indian viewers, I have noticed. Even Jani Man had a similar structure with its dialogues and situations in the film almost being performed like it were a live action play. Something so unique, but this seems to be consistently rejected by the Indian audience. I still revisit the Jagga Jasoos trailer and just how beautifully it was edited and presented. It made me really believe that we may have our own Tintin series, but it materialized into being mostly regarded as a disaster versus being appreciated for its charm and technical prowess. I understand that Anurag Basu has a tendency to indulge and how he does get obsessed with his own world, so much so that he just does not know when to rein it in, but Jagga purely from a creative standpoint will have a special place in my heart, for it dared to imagine. I think still to this day it is one of the most beautifully shot films that deserved a lot more love from the audience. No smoking. Imagine spending years writing stories and dialogues for movies, hoping and praying that one day you will get a break to make your own feature film. Imagine having the tutelage of one of the most influential directors in Hindi cinema and being responsible for the screenplay of exceptionally gripping and hard-hitting films like Shool, Satya and Gone. You're definitely going to be making something special, right? What if the system of the censor board and the government was so obtuse, so bizarre and so tough to comprehend that it ensures that your first 2 feature films never get to release in theaters respectively? As is the case with most artists, they go either of 2 ways. Either they self-destruct and curse everyone in their way responsible for them not thriving, or they channelize the same angst towards their next creation, and in came No Smoking. A movie so eccentric with its themes, so odd and confusing in its structure, so unique on what it wanted to shed light on that people assumed it was a PSA against smoking, and Anurag Kashyap deemed it fit that the only way to tell this to a large audience would be casting a commercial face like John Abraham, not realizing that this was an attempt by a filmmaker to show a middle finger to the censor board. This movie was trashed by critics. John Abraham as K was a narcissistic, foul-mouthed prick, and it's tough for audiences to love such a movie when the lead character is so unlikable. But this is the predicament Anurag Kashyap was in, or at least he was perceived as. Anurag held on to his pen much like K held on to his cigarette, his medium of creativity, his freedom. Those closest to him also wanted to snatch that power away from him that satiates him and also destroys him. The rehab center managed by Paresh Rawal took the shape of authorities in Kashyap's life that dictate what can and cannot be said or done. K and his isolation and descent into madness in the rehab center is exactly how chained Kashyap felt as a creator in the industry, only to come out of it more disoriented and lost than he was before. This allegory of freedom of speech, it being snatched away, and who dictates what can and cannot be said is so exceptionally explored in this film that it is still regarded as one of the most misunderstood films in Hindi cinema. This Kafkaesque predicament of Kashyap expressed in the movie is beautifully explained in the piece by the Tripping on Cinema YouTube channel 8 years ago, in what is still to this day one of the best film essays on YouTube that I would highly recommend to all of you. Phir bhi dil hai Hindustani. I was having a toss-up between this movie and Badshah about which film to talk about with all of you, but upon rewatch, I can't help but rave about this movie and how relevant it is even after 26 years. One of the 3 films that SRK produced under the banner of Dreams Unlimited, this movie was a huge financial flop that was rejected by the audience. A movie that was not only an unapologetic reminder about the invasive and irresponsible functioning of the media in this country that has possibly become worse today, but also makes Indians introspect about their own shortcomings, not only as a nation but as individuals. The film was an effective commentary on the gross exaggeration of facts and manipulation carried out by the media in close proximity with influential politicians. This influence on the herd and how one can mobilize the sentiment of the nation just based on theatrics and hearsay, how the misery of individuals become public entertainment, and how the ramifications of what is said and the adverse impact it has on personal lives is immaterial, as it meets the criteria of more eyeballs, in turn achieving what everyone is fighting for: more revenue. Where I think this movie lost out on creating a connection with the audience was the balancing act it kept on attempting with its pitch. It would focus on a heartbreaking story of a man frustrated by the system who avenged his daughter's death by taking revenge, by taking law into his own hands, but offset this mood with a comedic track of Johnny Lever, or even the worst Chinese impression by Shah Rukh Khan and Juhi Chawla. This need to be entertaining but also focus on compelling themes that are a harsh reality of Indian society is where the film tonally seemed inconsistent. It, however, even upon rewatch, is an extremely impactful satire on the soulless, capitalistic nature of the media that will squeeze out every inch of drama it can from real life situations as they formulate their daily soaps masquerading as news. The movie released a week after Kaho Na Pyar Hai, a movie that most people assumed would lose out on a clash with SRK, only to become a rage that is still remembered as the best debut in Hindi film history. I think the movie, with its message, exceptional music, has still endured as time has passed, and I'm still waiting for its much awaited sequel, Phir bhi dil hai NRI. It's the need of the hour, especially when we see the sorry state of journalism today all around us. Maybe the experiences of an NRI documentary filmmaker as he takes the behind the scenes footage of how news channels in India function today would be interesting. Yup, we all know that movie today will release with 0 cuts, won't it? Behen. I think one of the most socially relevant and impactful films in Hindi cinema in 2026 was actually the Netflix movie titled Behen. The movie has generated such triggered and extreme responses from the internet, shaming the characters in the film as a glorification of toxic women, that I was slightly blown away by how far the red pill culture of all women are evil has spread. If a woman is not agreeable, subservient and monosyllabic with her replies, if she does not have a tehzeeb and shame associated with the nature with which she speaks, they are deemed as evil witches targeting their next prey. This was some of the absolutely wild reviews I was seeing, especially on X. For a movie that I believe was deeply misconstrued, for this movie genuinely chose one of the most creative ways to tell the story of how women are vilified in society and are deemed the root cause of all moral and societal problems. The film, from a creative standpoint, rather than indulging in generic flashbacks, uses the tool of describing one's origin story through the host of Sunsani. It methodically uses the dramatic tone of a popular sensational news show that used the form of theatrics and exaggeration to tell the tale of women, setting the tone of how a promiscuous woman like Rekha is perceived in the society. The film employs the same pitch in establishing the story, many people misconstruing this pitch as overacting, not realizing that the over-the-top nature of the film is intentional in order to set the tone of the huge gap that exists between rumors and reality, much like the skits on AIB that used an exaggerated pitch and satire to shed light on disturbing realities of society. How one perceives someone like Rekha is vastly different from how she actually is. The film presents the three leads with the names Rekha, Jaya and Sushma, the names of what India through the Nirma ads perceived as the perfect women in society, the ideal image of the wife and mother in the household who cooks, cleans and does not even have a dag on their perfectly washed clothes. There is an exceptional commentary in this movie associated with shame and how one's tolerance of abuse or violence is associated with the perception of what people will think, and if they break free, if you were to snatch away this shame, how women would be so fearless in coming out to speak about what they have endured. The movie is not perfect in any way. Its set design always makes one feel like the story has been shot on a curated set. Madhuri Dixit's Bhojpuri accent is wildly inconsistent, and I think especially related to one of the star cameos that appears in the latter half of the movie, the makers just did not know where to go with that subplot. But despite these minor hiccups, the vitriol this movie received concerns me more for how hellbent the internet becomes in invalidating what women may endure with whataboutism to counter it with stories where women may be evil. We are in this odd sex war on the internet where if a man is portrayed to have crossed the line or say something vile and is being rightfully called out by women for the same, the witch hunt to invalidate the women's story almost becomes the sole mission of users, scouring through their history to see where she may have faltered in life, to invalidate whatever she has said in the matter. The biggest standout for me personally in this movie was Tripti Dimri, who in popular media is referenced as Bhabhi too, a term that I so consistently get annoyed with, for no one celebrated this woman for the compelling tale she did prior to her big commercial break in Animal. Tripti absolutely acing the scene of reprimanding her husband in this film is not a shocking revelation for anyone who has seen her in Bulbul, Kala or Laila Majnu. She has always been this good, and I think it would be ideal if one just gives her roles of substance in her theatrical releases too, because she is that good. The chemistry between the sisters, Dharna's spunk on screen, and the brilliance with which the movie creates this dichotomy between reality and what society has been manipulated into believing about Rekha due to their own biases and deeply entrenched misogyny genuinely makes me believe that this movie deserved way more discussion than it got. I got to it very late due to a hectic schedule, I apologize, but the uncontrollable laughter that all the women break into in this movie when Ravi Kishan threatens to expose them, assuming that they will be concerned about their reputation, is the liberation one strives for, of breaking free and running wild from the shackles of patriarchy without giving a generic speech about it in the climax. I can't help but think about Dostoevsky's quote when I concluded this film that the biggest form of slavery is the hunger for being understood by others. Behen was genuinely special. Laal Kaptaan. I often think about this movie and the absolutely wild potential it had to become a franchise. Directed by Navdeep Singh, who heartbreakingly since then has not made a feature film, starred Saif Ali Khan playing a Naga Sadhu, a lone ranger of sorts who has demons that he is dealing with, for he is torn between the ideals of detachment but drawn towards the impulse of revenge. The film's storyline tied elements of revenge and even mystical elements of prophecies to the backdrop of a western set during the era of the downfall and fragmentation of the Mughal Empire and the rise of the influence of British imperialists, and it eventually became a delicious concoction that we rarely see being attempted by Hindi cinema. The film was absolutely visually spectacular and boasted of such intense, gritty and exceptional performances by the cast that you really believed that these are the tales that need to be celebrated, but all the effort went in vain, for the movie just did not gain any momentum. I remember stepping into an empty theatre wondering how absolutely no one tuned in for this film. Was it because it did not boast of commercial elements like chart-busting music, hooks like viral choreography or a scantily clad female lead? What is it about this film that, leave aside criticism, people just did not tune in? Laal Kaptaan, ending its box office run with absolutely disastrous results, broke the heart of Saif Ali Khan, who dedicated a lot to the character both internally and externally. While it is praiseworthy for an actor like Saif to still look at a silver lining of the experiences he had and be grateful for the creative process, Laal Kaptaan and its failure for a long time broke me from within. For it wasn't as if it was unanimously hated, it just wasn't being seen by people. And I believe its potential to become its own comic book series or franchise gutted me even more. Imagine a series of movies where the Naga Sadhu has become a contract killer, eliminating various enemies across historical time periods, while being so unassuming but so tactical and efficient at his job. This was not misunderstood by the audience, it wasn't understood only. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what are movies according to you that are brilliant but were grossly misunderstood by the audience. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.